Hi, join me, Surajat Marbury, on ITV every Thursday night, 8 to 9 on ieSPORTS Digest, a comprehensive roundup of all sports, local, regional, and international. We'll reach out to our villages and our communities in all areas of Trinidad and Tobago to highlight their sporting activities. I'll also invite prominent guests to share their views and address current issues facing sports, focusing on realistic solutions. Join me on ITV.
ieSPORTS Digest, Thursdays at 8 p.m. right here on IETV.
Hi, pleasant good night to our viewers on IETV and those of you on the World Wide Web, following on Facebook and so on. Welcome once more to ieSPORTS Digest. As usual, we kick off the program with some roundup of what has been happening around the world in sports. And I guess for football fans, it's big right now. You're probably very busy because English Premier League kicked off last week. Some good news for Chelsea, Tottenham Hotspurs. They started off with victories against Everton and Southampton respectively. Liverpool, not off to such a good start. They drew 2-2 with Fulham. Leicester also had a draw with Brentford. Of course, Manchester fans will be happy to know that they also kicked off with a win, a 2-0 to West Ham. And for those of you, and I know it have a lot of you out there like myself, we are still wondering what's wrong over the last couple of years. And we're still wondering because Man U went down 2-1 to Brighton. New coach, new manager. Let's see, hopefully things can pick up for the Man U fan early in the season as yet. In the French League, Ligue 1 also kicked off, and as usual, Messi was on the ball with 2 goals, and Neymar also notched 1 as they were off their 6-1 victory over Clermont Foot. Marseille and Lille were also off to victorious starts. They had 4-1 victories, and remember those are some of the competition for PSG. The Bundesliga kicked off as well, and once again, as usual, perennial champs Bayern Munich started off with a great victory, 6-1 over Eintracht Frankfurt. But Sadio Mane, their new signing, also got in on the score sheet there. Dortmund also will be one of their contenders there, defeated Leverkusen 1-0, and Mönchengladbach had a 3-1 victory over Hoffenheim. So some of the top teams there getting off the victories. We also had the UEFA Super Cup happening, and Real Madrid defeated Frankfurt 2-0. Benzema once more, of course, very common name, on the score sheet together with David Alaba. Of course, for us in Trinidad and Tobago, the last couple of weeks has been one of celebration, as we mentioned this program last week when Ms. Rorona Williams was here. We were having some very good performances at the Commonwealth Games. We had cycling taking the highlight first of all, and we had gold, silver, and bronze in the cycling events. And we continue this week with some more successes in the Commonwealth game. Jerry Richards, and we expect a lot from him in the coming years because he's fantastic. Breaking a record that's stood since 1994, held by Frankie Fredericks of Namibia, to take gold in the 200 meters in a time of 19.8 seconds. Congratulations to Jerry, fantastic effort, and we wish him all the best as we move on. We also had the 4x500 relay team bringing us gold in that event. I remember sitting on that TV there and watching, and I was a little bit worried because going to the final leg, we know Jerry just won the 200 and he had to go 400. And for a while it looked like he was being caught, but he held on and he anchored us to victory in that event. Fantastic week for us there in the Commonwealth Games, because we also had a silver in the 4x100. Don't forget that we also had silver in the 4x100 in the Commonwealth Games. So a wonderful week for us here, and of course, you know, when this happens, it's not only about the athletes, but about our Twin Island Republic, and the publicity gets throughout the world when our athletes perform. What was very happy to me was to see that, you know, that there is some reward. We spoke on this sports show before about rewards for our athletes, and I remember speaking to Ms. Rowena Williams about the cost, and I'm sure some of you learned for the first time the cost for a cyclist to perform. So to see that the cyclists are being rewarded fairly substantially by the government for their performances based on whether it's gold, silver, or bronze, it's great news for the athletes, and hopefully they'll continue to perform excellently and bring us glory. And they have continued, because if you are following cycling in the Pan American Track Cycling Championship, we picked up another gold this week when Nicholas Paul, again, congratulations to Nicholas, Kwesi Brown, Zion Pulido won gold for TT in the men's team sprint event. So our cyclists continue to do us proud, and we continue to be proud of them and happy for their performances. Moving on to cricket now. Well, you know, I kept it for last because later in this program we have a gentleman who is very much involved in cricket, successfully at that, and he'll be the guest on today's show. But just to do a little roundup of what has been happening, we know that the West Indies T20 series with India completed over the weekend in Fort Lauderdale. We end up losing both games and finished the series 4-1. We also bowled off against New Zealand in Sabina Park, and we did put up a fight in the end thanks to our last two batsmen, but we end up losing the game by 13 runs, 1-0 again. You know, we need to see some improved performances from our West Indies team. There has been a lot of news over the past week concerning our T20 team. It's the coach himself, you know, rightfully so, saying that he cannot beg nobody to play for West Indies, and I totally support that. We, you know, if we want to represent our Caribbean people, we have to make decisions that will benefit not only us personally, but the Caribbean as well as a people, and make ourselves available as top players as the other countries do, players around the country, our world do. Yes, we know that there is life after cricket, there is life during cricket, and players have to earn their keep, and they have to look to do whatever they can to make sure that they are comfortable with when their career do end, and especially if it happens to end early through injury. But there's a certain amount of patriotism that we ask for our players, and we're hoping we'll see more of that from the West Indies cricketers as we move forward. So let's look for a turn of fortune for our West Indies team. We still have a couple of one-days to play after the T20, so hopefully we'll see a change in performances there. The CWI Regional Under-19 women's team also on a tour to the USA. They are in preparation for the first Women's Under-19 World Cup. After the series here, we knew that a team was selected, and they are in Florida at this time, competing against the women's team, which won that tournament that was played here. So far, they have played 3 games. The first one, the USA won. They made 81 for 5, and West Indies were kept to 79 for 7. Janaba Joseph from Trinidad got 27 in that game. West Indies won the second by 1 run. Having made 100, they were able to restrict the US to 99 when their 20 overs were completed, thanks to some good bowling from Kejaz Mitchell, another Trinidad and Tobago athlete, fast bowler, who got 3 wickets for 8 runs, and Shalini Samaru, who also scored 40 in that game and had some good bowling figures. And in the final game played, well, not the final, but the third game played today, because there's 2 more left to be played. The USA was also victorious after West Indies were restricted to 70 for 4. The US made 71 for 5 in 18.3 overs. Janaba again got among the runs, scoring 20. Samara Ramnath, another young Trinidadian, made 14. Shalini had excellent bowling figures in that she had 4 overs, 1 wicket 4 runs. So we are seeing some good performances from the young West Indian. I'm sure you are concerned about the low scores, and you have to realize that, I mean, sometimes you wonder how these things are planned, because where they are playing in Broward County is the same square and probably the same pitch where India play West Indies, and now they see 3 games that they have played. So that's 5 games in 6 days in the same square. So probably the pitch is not, you know, of that quality and to enable the batters to really play longer innings and stay in the wicket longer. So it's a concern, and you know, it's something that CWI needs to address. If we want to develop our players and you are looking to prepare a team for a World Cup, you want them to perform in the best condition, and probably funding is always an issue, but it cannot be an excuse, because I can recall that before we played the last Under-19 World Cup in the West Indies, in the hot West Indies, our Under-19 boys played in a preparation tournament in very cold England. Went to England, played in a preparation tournament to play a T20 World Cup in the West Indies in hot conditions. And the team was changed after performances in England. Some people, of course, will not perform there. So sometimes you wonder how some of these decisions are made, and I'm sure a lot of you are confused out there because you saw Holder recently opening the innings for West Indies, and you wonder, well, we have 2 makeshift openers, and then a makeshift another opener, and then Devon Thomas batting 3, and you wonder, you know, what's really happening. So a lot of thought needs to go on. I mean, we support our West Indies team, and we are hoping for the best. And then following on all these as well, you had the announcement from Ms. Deandra Duthing that she has retired from West Indies cricket at the very early age of 31. Our most successful West Indian cricketer still holds the record for the fastest T20 century for a woman. She has campaigned successfully over the years and performed exceptionally for West Indies in T20 and one-day cricket and in tournaments around the world. She's very recognized, and it was shocking that, I mean, out of the blues during the Commonwealth Games where Barbados was representing the Caribbean, she announced her retirement. So we want to wish her all the best, because she is at present playing in the 100 tournament in England. We also had some other games happening. I mean, Afghanistan versus Ireland, and Ireland won today by 7 wickets. That was a strange one for me, because Afghanistan has been performing well over the years, and we are seeing some improved performances from Ireland and also from Scotland recently. Scotland also defeated the UAE today by 64 runs, and we also saw another kind of strange, well, I wouldn't say strange, but Zimbabwe having some excellent performances against Bangladesh to take their one-day series 2-1, having won Zimbabwe having won the first 2 games quite handsomely. So, as I said, today we are moving into cricket, and I'm sure a lot of you are excited because coming up very soon, we have one of the busiest time of the Caribbean and one of the most fun time in the Caribbean for Caribbean cricket spectators. That is the CPL. So when we return from this break, we talk CPL and we introduce the man of the moment from CPL who is us here today. Thank you. Hi, join me, Surajat Marbury on ITV every Thursday night, 8 to 9 on ieSPORTS Digest, a comprehensive roundup of all sports, local, regional, and international. We will reach out to our villages and our communities in all areas of Trinidad and Tobago to highlight their sporting activities. I'll also invite prominent guests to share their views and address current issues facing sports, focusing on realistic solutions. Join me on ITV.
ieSPORTS Digest, Thursdays at 8 p.m. right here on IETV.
Welcome back. As I said, today we are going to talk cricket, and coming up very soon is this Caribbean Premier League, or as we say, cricket played loudly, and we know it's played loudly in the Caribbean because you go to those games and I can assure you, someone sitting next to you, and you can barely have a conversation, and that's the fun of it. You don't want to be where you're not in the heat of the moment. You can only enjoy it when you are there, and that's the fun. So we have the 60s coming up soon. Following that, we have the Women's CPL. That is fantastic. That is some very good, very, very good news to see that our women are getting the opportunity. It's something that, you know, as president of secondary school a couple of years ago, I remember we had the opening at Fatima College. And we have girls hardball in secondary school, as I mentioned previously, for 6 years. And I remember telling the girls there, be prepared. You are now how much? 13, 14, 15. We are going to have CPL women soon. Because I have some friends who, like one sitting with me now, who is giving me little tips. So we knew that this women's CPL was coming, and that's great news. It's here with us now, and I'm sure that some of those girls who would have been in that audience, they like Renice Bryce and Shalini Samaru and so on, would have been part of that. And then we have, of course, the main event, the men's CPL bowling off. So, Mr. Colin Borde, manager.
Good evening, sir. Good to see you.
Nice to meet
Thanks
you
for having
once
me.
again.
I do.
Very well, welcome. You started your career in managing with the Red Force, Trinidad and Tobago team. Then you went on to Red Steel, and then to what is now TKR.
Yeah.
Fantastic, and most successful CPL manager, I think.
But if you're checking titles, yes.
Well, of course, that's how we check titles. So tell me, for our viewers out there, first of all, because, I mean, if I were to ask, if I had a coach here, I'm sure the viewer will know, well, okay, the coach is to look at the player, look at their techniques, tell them do this, let's do this the way, let's plan the strategy. So what does the manager do? You know, someone might feel your job is to just go and get the water. What does the manager do?
It's a vast range of things that I do. In essence, I look after the team and the composition of, from players to staff to logistics to flights to hotels to part sponsorship. What are the relationships we have with sponsors? So generally, the group of us is about 34 in all. It's a large group, 17 players, and then you have backroom staff, you have branding staff, you have media staff. So the organization itself, Night Riders, is not just the players. We have our group of family, as we call them, is a larger picture, as I said. So my role is really in terms of coordination, make sure that all of the moving parts are moving seamlessly. That then takes me into negotiations through another branch, a commercial branch, in terms of getting aircraft to move around. It's quite difficult in the Caribbean to move 128 pieces, 130 pieces of luggage and 34 people. And the luggage is not just to take on, carry. You have cricket bags, you have paraphernalia to move it, cameras, you have a lot of stuff to do. You know, we set up, like yourself, we set up our own green screen in each country that we go to, because we also do quite a bit of branding out of India.
Okay.
So because we are part of the Night Riders brand, it's not just regional but more global. Night Riders itself has now a team which is going to be in North America next year in LA. There's one in UAE coming up. There's one Kolkata Night Riders, one in the Caribbean, TKR, and probably another two on its way. Okay. So it's an expanding brand. So in terms of the media aspect of it, we have a whole media crew that works with that. My coordination of that is to make sure it runs smoothly. We do the things on the commercial side, because obviously sponsorship and so on plays a huge part. You have to pay the bills. You have to do television. You have to ensure that on social media all the things are happening. All of that evolves around the players, because it's all geared towards the players. So that coordination in terms of timing, who's going to do what, who's going to brand what, who's going to do what interviews, that's a separate away from the actual team. The interaction with the players is where I get to work with sponsors on our media team in who is going to facilitate where. So off the field, there's quite a number of things players have to do outside of playing the cricket itself. And then, as I mentioned, the logistics in terms of aircraft, I mentioned earlier about Caribbean Airlines, is who we've taken on board. Obviously, we have to move by private aircraft to be able to facilitate that movement in and around the Caribbean. So we won't travel commercially. We will charter an aircraft and move throughout the various islands to make sure that things run extremely smoothly and on time. That's a separate thing. And then you can go further in from equipment to the actual coordination of the team. The team itself, of course, as I mentioned, we have a huge backroom staff. It's a support staff. It's there to ensure that all the things run smoothly with the players, from the medical team, the coaching staff. As I mentioned earlier, media, commercial, branding. I have to pull all that to make sure it works seamlessly with myself, the coach, the commercial arm, the captain. Those are important facets of it, because You have to create this environment that whilst all of that media storm and stuff is going on, that there's calm in the dressing room. That's important. That's the key component
Very
really
much
in the
so,
end.
because that's where the performance is coming. So, so I guess our viewers would have a greater understanding of the role. And of course, from what you tell me, I'll learn a little more because I do know the role of the manager. But in terms of, let's say, a national team, which you have the national body or doing the backroom work, because as you mentioned, this is a commercial aspect of cricket. You have a lot more duties from what you mentioned there, because sponsorship is key. And getting the right mileage for sponsorship is key. And of course, managing the players in their performance while upkeeping their sponsorship rules become very, very, very a thin line.
Extremely.
So that you don't lose that focus.
Correct. The thing about it, that players are human beings, but there are a lot of demands on players. Remember, as I mentioned to you earlier, quite a number of our sponsors are international sponsors. So there is a segment of work that we do that is not seen in the Caribbean. So we cater to the Indian market. So you'll find sometimes if you look at some of the games that we play outside of here, they played at 10 o'clock in the morning. And the reason for playing 10 o'clock in the morning is India time, so that it shows a specific time, and that's where the marketing and branding comes in. So it's really around the clock, because you're trying to work on India time, you're trying to work on Asia time, you're trying to work on Australia time, and you're trying to still function on Caribbean time. So there's a lot, meaning that you have to be extremely meticulous in how you plan your schedule. And our schedule is pretty much set already. We know what we have to do, and then what we do is we fill in the blanks commercially, always looking at the players. Now, the key for us really with players is that we don't think about the tournament now. We have to look at the workload they've just come from and what they're going to do next. So that we have to be mindful that they're human beings, that they're coming out of series. Remember, a lot of these players are playing in the 100 ball, playing for West Indies, playing all around the planet. And we have to cater for all of those things to find in that window that we have those players, that we know their medical conditions, we know their psychological conditions, we get a little feel for their family background, and we find ways to accommodate that to get the optimum performance out of them, not only singularly, but most importantly, as a unit.
Very much so. And you mentioned a very important factor there. Because of these guys flying all over the world, family is very important. And for that comfort to know that, okay, I'm back in the Caribbean, you know, how can I manage this? Because whereas previously you never saw families flying, now you look around the world. For example, I was watching the New Zealand series in Ireland, I think. And apparently they had all their wife, their kids, everybody there. So that's
it is now in
important.
professional sport that families move with players, and I think more so coming out of COVID and coming out of that bubble. It's a tough life. Remember, these guys would have been in a bubble for 2.5 years. Now the things are opening up. They want to see their families, and a lot of these players spend 10 or 11 months on the road. What we try to do is accommodate. So we cater for family members. We have a good, I think this year, TKR will probably move at about 18 people that are family members, wives, and so on. So there is another arm that we work for that family, so that we make sure that we have them comfortable, where the flights are going to be, where they stay, how they get to the games, where they sit, what they eat. So it's quite a large amount of stuff that has to be done away from the field of play, so that the players are comfortable. The players also are acutely aware of what we do. And then what we ask of them is to give us the best on the field of play. And so there's a synergy and an ecosystem within the team that has to be balanced and it has to be maintained, so that at the end of the day, we build that bubble around the team so that they can get the opportunity to focus as professionals, but maintain as normal a life as possible, so that they can turn up, always remembering that the bottom line is that the fans come to see them, and you want to be able to give the fans the best show possible.
Best show possible, and of course win for your team. And of course, you know, so you have given us a fairly comprehensive view of the role of the manager there. And as I said, while it's for a national team, it might not be that, you know, exorbitant and that large, because you have a little support outside, and you don't have this as much sponsorship. It's very much so. And well, as I said, you were manager of Trinidad and Tobago team first, and I remember years ago when we first introduced the concept, because I've been around cricket, of a manager in a team, because previously all you had was a coach traveling with the team.
Yes.
And then we brought on managers, and people asked, well, why you want a manager for? And that's why I asked you to clear up that, because why you didn't take a physiotherapist, why you didn't take you know, an assistant coach or something. And now that you have outlined that, at least our viewers are clear. What about the mental aspect of it? Do you have to get involved? Because you have to keep the players comfortable.
Yeah. So the thing is, as I mentioned earlier, the ecosystem is important. And I say ecosystem because everything is a fine line. Each moving part has to work in synergy with the other. And the psychological part plays a huge part with players for obvious reasons. A player may be coming off a West Indies duty that they're not doing too well. So his confidence may be quite low then. Somebody may be coming out 100 ball doing well, he's good. So each player we have to look at separately and see where they are, how they feel, what they do. So those are conversations we have as a support team. My role really is to make sure that it's coordinated well. The head coach will have his conversations. He may see something that I haven't picked up or vice versa. So we have these small meetings happening all the time. Always looking at players, looking at how they're playing one technically. Coaches will come in technically, but then they'll ask you questions about the psychological side of it. A lot of it is in your head. But we know that with athletes, sometimes the difference between winning and losing is that somebody else is switched on or more focused because the support is there for them. And we have to balance that against the responsibility of the player that has to also understand that we're at work. And as much as we provide an environment that is conducive to learning and more so conducive to being able to express yourself, the bottom line is when you turn up, you have to turn up. You know, we have a saying that we'll cry tonight, but not today.
Yes.
So we come in, we do the job, and then we move on. So we have to be able to have these triggers, and things are set meticulously so that we get to a certain point where we set certain triggers for the team so that when we get to a certain place, press the button, and it's game time. So there are a lot of things happening behind the scenes because ultimately it's a professional entity and it's results oriented both on and off the field.
Very much so, and then you will have to deal with issues like the player who probably can't get into the team, and you still have to keep him happy and keep him going and keep him on top of the game.
Yep.
And so on.
So that's part and parcel of it. You know, as I said before, everybody that's set up in the team has a specific role, but no role is. I'm not be all or end all at all. I rely completely on the staff around me and vice versa, but we rely also on the players. I think it's important to understand the players are the ones that play a huge role in the team as well. What we do is we guide overtly and then we guide subvertly, the unseen hand, to just make sure that things move along smoothly. And the bottom line is to make sure that the players themselves are comfortable and are focused on the reason why they've come here. The reason they've come here is to play the best cricket that they can.
Lovely. So we have been able to look at the role of the manager, but let's talk some cricket now. Squad this year. Good team. I think we're happy with what the players that we've chosen. What we do have in the team is a good balance. I think we pay a lot of attention over the years to the type of player that we have. So we work with skill sets initially, and then we work with the ability for players, whoever they are and wherever they come from, to be able to work in a team environment. I think it's important that the type of player that we bring fits into that, because we are very big as a group on working as one unit. We understand the moving parts, we understand the personalities, but we must make sure teams win tournaments, not individuals. Individuals win matches here and there. And we are very meticulous, particularly the selection committee, of the type of player that we choose. And if there are players from abroad, we look at the situations where they play in and how they come out of those situations. And that determines a lot of the value of the player and the value of the player to the team as a whole, and not just the singular value. And I think we're comfortable with the group that we've chosen. We've tried to move forward. We're happy to bring Nicholas Puran back home. Remember, he would have started his T20 tournament with us as Red Steel. Yeah.
And now we're happy to bring him back home. We've added Andre Russell, which will give us some depth and some firepower at the back end.
I think that was more a plan because Andre always licks Trinidad.
Well, he's done quite a bit of damage to us, so we always figure it's better to have him on this side of the table than the other. But I think, you know, he's also part of the Knight Riders group, and therefore, what Knight Riders obviously is trying to do is try to get a core of players around the planet that will play together, understand each other, but play the type of cricket that the brand wants to play.
That's right.
That's important.
It's a large group, Red Chili Pepper, in that that thing. And then having lost Dwayne, I mean, that was a serious blow.
Yeah, I mean, of course, with Dwayne leaving, that was a blow, definitely. Dwayne was there from day one for Red Steel. Of course, it's Dwayne Bravo. He's the entertainer, but importantly, he's an excellent leader. And, you know, he drove the team forward, but he also had some ideas about what he wanted to do for Caribbean cricket. So he wanted to move on, which he has. And I think his strength now is the experience he's gained over the years and his ability to get to players and let players believe in themselves and back them. That's a skill that he has, which he's utilizing. We expect that he'll use it more, not only globally, but more so for the West Indies as well. So it was with a heavy heart that we had to release him, but hoping that maybe down the road something will happen where he can come back and contribute here. But it worked well for Patriots, and we're hoping that he will again produce another good team. At the end of the day, what we try to do in a tournament as part of we see ourselves as not just a franchise within a tournament, but a part of an entire production called CPL Caribbean Premier League, and what role we can play within that. Yes, we compete on the field, but off the field, franchises try to work alongside each other in terms of assuring that we get the entire tournament running smoothly, so ultimately for the people to enjoy, for young people to get inspired to want to play the game. And if we've done that, then we know we're doing a good job.
Thanks. So we go on a break. We'll be right back with you here on IETV. Hi, join me, Surajat Marbury on IETV every Thursday night, 8 to 9 on ieSPORTS Digest, a comprehensive roundup of all sports, local, regional and international. We will reach out to our villages and our communities in all areas of Trinidad and Tobago to highlight their sporting activities. I'll also invite prominent guests to share their views and address current issues facing sports, focusing on realistic solutions. Join me on IETV.
ieSPORTS Digest, Thursdays at 8 p.m. right here on IETV.
Right, welcome back. So we have been looking at different aspects of cricket and of course the CPL, and we ended up there with the loss of Dwayne Bravo, which, and as Colin said, you know, he has, I support totally what he chose to do to spread his, you know, knowledge and skills around the Caribbean, and we saw the excellent performances last year from his team. We expect the same. We know that Caribbean has brought a lot back to that. We may have lost Bravo, but we know the ability and skills of Pollard as well in that area. So we have not really lost. And now with Andre Russell coming to TKR and Puran, it's really a lot of powerhouses there. As we are well, you know, Dwayne is more a motivator and more a bowler than a batsman now. He still executes the ball substantially. And with Russell now, you know, the TKR will still be have that balance there, because he can explode in those last overs and still give you a couple of very good overs. So, I mean, that was a very good move there, Colin, to get Andre on board with Trinidad and Tobago. But I'm sure the viewers, given the performances of the West Indies team, and you have been around, as I said, a long time, do you see CPL benefiting West Indies cricket? Yeah.
So for instance, when CPL first came a decade ago, because this is our 10th year, and I say our because I'm part of that CPL group, participating in it, and it's a Caribbean Premier League. There was very little T20 cricket being played. Yes, we did have a Stanford. Yes, we had the regional tournament, but the West Indies Cricket Board could not afford it. I think it was to operate it in those days, I think it was like $3 million US to run it. And those are one of the reasons why they chose to go the route of working with the Caribbean Premier League, and at the material time it was Digicel. And since then they've sold off. One of the things that it has done is brought back awareness. The crowds have come back. And once you have crowds coming back to the game, yes, it's a shorter version of the game, and it's all around the planet. It means that people are still interested in the game. There was a time we were getting very few people into the stadium, even in the T20s. And now we brought back a little flair to the game. We brought back some fun. Sports is still entertainment. What it has also done is some of the part of the proceeds do go to the regional bodies as part of the agreement a decade ago, and it still happens today. And that money is supposed to go towards the redevelopment of players in the Caribbean and in each territorial body. Additionally, it's been mandatory now that you must play an under-19 player. You must play what is considered an emergent player, 50% of the games. It doesn't matter what position you're in, but you must expose young players. And that has been part of the selection process. Each year, we each must pick up 2 players. Those players are going to benefit. Jaden Seals was one. He's now on to Test cricket. He's on to the other ones. We have Anderson. We have Leo Julian again this year. He's come out of the World Cup on the 19 team. We've taken him for a second time. And we have young Cotterell, we call him Sharon Lewis. He's from Rio Claro. This will be Sharon's first opportunity under the big lights. And I think the real key to it is, yes, you have to play, and you're not going to play all the games. But to get to rub shoulders with Jacques Callis and Hashim Amla, Umar Akmal, Brendan McCallum, Dwayne Bravo, Sunil Narayan, and others from around Colin Borde, when I use TKR only, even Ponting and so on that were here, and to work with some coaches from abroad is a great opportunity for youngsters. We could go deeper and find what do we do next outside of a perennial tournament. I think those are the areas.
Which is, I think, what I was leading up to. So we have the CPL. I would agree with you that it will have given a lot of exposure to a lot of our players. It's the first step, really, to if you want to break into the international league. As I said, a concern, of course, and I'm sure our viewers share it, is the fact that when you do break in sometimes, as I said, the patriotism is not there because we're not seeing them coming back and playing for the West Indies anyway. But it does give the opportunity. But do you think, and of course, well, we know that there was, for those of you who don't know in terms of reviewers, there was, when CPL agreement was signed, it was agreed that for a certain number of years, the region cannot have another T20 tournament of that nature. That has since elapsed. That time span has since elapsed, and that CPL have gotten their time to grow. And we talked to Colin. You can see how much they have grown. I'm sure you have a better idea now what happens behind the scene and the amount of money and input that comes from the investors in CPL. So do you see, or do you think that there is the opportunity now for a second T20 tournament between the Caribbean islands?
Yeah, what's as you said, the contractual agreements, I think it was the first 7 years we were giving them an opportunity to grow. That has since happened. Whether or not there's another one, yes. The key for these tournaments, though, and it's an expensive endeavor. And it always comes down to economy of scales, and therein lies one of the problems. Even for West Indies cricket now, you've seen that they're shortening the amount of games for 4-day cricket and so on, and playing them in territories. Now, for the last 12 or 13 years, they've done that. What they did this time in terms of playing 4-day cricket to play in one territory, they tried that in 2010, I think it was, we called festival cricket. And it's really about the difficulty in moving and the expenses. The hotels, when you weigh hotels here as opposed to other places, you might pay $200 US for a night here. You could get a 5-star hotel for $110. It's costly. It's costly to move equipment, so it's very costly to run these programs. Yes, from a cricketing perspective, I see why not. Because those should be the second tier leading up to a CPL to leave. So you must have that stepping stone, maybe to bring some younger ones in. The catch-22 with that is that whether you're 19 years old or 29, it still costs the same for a ticket. Exactly. It still costs the same ticket to fly on an aircraft. You still have to eat. You still have to use hotel rooms. The real issue here is economics, and I think that is where the bridge, in terms of getting sponsorship to join it, that is a difficult bridge to bring together. But I truly believe that you can another one can coexist on a smaller scale.
Agreed, because as you say, it's like a stepping stone.
Yeah.
Because that is what we had before we had CPL, the Sandals and the Standerford. So it's something that can be looked at. And for the viewers there, you know, the logistics, the costs are always tremendous. And I think it came up in this program before. We spoke simply of Trinidad and Tobago sports in cricket, football, if you remember the first program, and athletics. And one of the things that came up was the cost of moving athletes from Tobago to Trinidad and vice versa, which is very high and costly. And you imagine now that you have to travel around the islands. You would have heard Mr. Borde say that because of the level of the sponsorship for CPL, they use private airlines. Of course, no national team will be able to afford that. So you're looking at cost, you're looking at sponsorship, and I think moreover you need government buy into something like this, and if you have to make it happen, because it's going to be very costly. Even the 4-day games are very costly. You know, hotels, everything else that the players have to get to make them comfortable to play. So it's nice to know that we could probably look at it as a stepping stone, as had more opportunities. You mentioned the name Sharon Lewis, and as a youngster that I know pretty well, not only him but his mom, because he comes from humble beginnings, and I was a national selector when Sharon started off under 19. You know, so when I saw him there, I was so happy. I think his mom, if you show you meet her one day,
Yes,
she's a lovely lady, very humble, and I'm very happy to see that he's. For those of you who don't know him, he's a left-arm medium pacer in the mold of Cottrell. Actually, some people call him Cutty,
we call him Cutty,
because he's in the same mold. Good pace, good speed, and he has come a long way. So I want to wish him, you know, all the best. Another name you mentioned, Leo. Fantastic talent.
Very good cricketer. This is the second stint with us. Certainly, I believe when we're coming into the T10, there's an opportunity for them to start there. It'll give them not under the same amount of pressure yet, but he's a very, very good talent. He's a good young guy. They're all good young players, and our role, as I mentioned earlier, is to start exposing them, not only to the pressures of the cricket. Cricket is like professional sport is a high pressure situation, particularly in the shorter version. You don't have much opportunities to correct your mistakes. You have to get it spot on, which means you have to prepare a lot better. But it's a great opportunity for both of them. Young Lewis, I'm so happy for him because I had to give him the phone call, and it's always nice when you call a player to tell him where you're sitting and where and so on, and then they get their reactions when they get an opportunity, because he has been in and around the team for a couple of years. I always bring youngsters to come as net bowlers, and let them come and bowl in the nets and so on, so they start seeing and feeling what it's like to be around top players. But the dream is always, at the end of it, they'll get a jersey, pay them a stipend, but they get a little feel, you know, you have them come to the dressing room, look around.
Lovely.
Yeah,
Lovely
so it's great to see that he's
yeah.
going to be part and parcel of it now.
And looking at his score, I can see Leo Julian, for those of you who know, he's a wicketkeeper batsman. He has some good chances of getting in, because except for Leo, your wicketkeeper is
well, you have Tim Seafoot. So Seafoot is one that is a proper wicketkeeper. You have Nicholas Puran as well. It depends on how you're going to balance that, particularly with the amount of cricket that Nicholas is playing. You want to be careful to save him for what you think is his best role, obviously as a batter. But he can play a part, because remember, we also have to play 50% of the
and
the youngsters. So he's going to play cricket. No doubt they're going to get some games, and it's important because he's a very good talent, extremely good cricketer.
I know him pretty well. I was manager of the under-17 team for 2 years when Leo was there. We won the 2 years though.
Yeah, good player. Very
and
good
I'm
player.
happy to see that you also have Anderson Phillip back with you, another young cricketer.
Yeah, he would have been with us. I think this is
for a couple of
fourth,
years.
maybe fifth year with us. And Ando has gone on to do excellent stuff. He's with the A team. He's been around the West Indies. He's already made his debut.
And he won there against Pakistan.
Yeah, I chatted with him yesterday. I think it was. He's going to play a role too. I think it's important what we're going to do this year. We try to balance it. We have some senior guys, but these contracts are 3-year contracts. And the reason we've done it that way now is that we want to start planning for the future. Because at some stage there's going to be an exodus of the big boys, the Pollards, the Russells, etc., the Sunels, and we have to be able to find room now to try to expose younger players to ensure that when that day comes, which it will, that we can then move forward into another generation of a little more experience.
Lovely. And for the viewers, they know, well, of course, the TKR has a lot of young Trinidad and Tobago cricketers, but you also have a couple of our players playing in the other Caribbean territories. I know that Dial, Joshua De Silva, well, of course, our good friend Dave Barrow has some with him as well in his team, Evan Lewis, Darren, and Joshua is with them.
Yeah, Joshua is with Patriots.
Yeah, and young Joshua James from Tobago as well.
Joshua is with, he's with Kings.
He's another very young, talented cricketer that I know. He and Leo were in the under-17 team together.
Joshua's a good player. We had him on our list as well, but the timing of it is the key when you're selecting teams, because we have to do it in a rotation. But he was part of the group, our selection committee looked at him. He's a good cricketer, very good cricketer. Nice young fella, well respectable boy, trains hard. And
also Amir Django is with one of the teams too. And you know, so why I mention all these names is the viewers to be aware, as Colin mentioned earlier, that it's a starting point, a stepping up point for a number of our young cricketers. All these names I mentioned, they are young cricketers who are around 20 to 23, some of them younger, you know, 19 to 23, 24, who are looking to break into West Indies team, become permanent fixtures on Trinidad team, and also break into international teams. So we'll talk some more when we come back. Hi, join me, Surajat Marbury on ITV every Thursday night, 8 to 9 on ieSPORTS Digest. a comprehensive roundup of all sports, local, regional, and international. We'll reach out to our villages and our communities in all areas of Trinidad and Tobago to highlight their sporting activities. I'll also invite prominent guests to share their views and address current issues facing sports, focusing on realistic solutions. Join me on IETV.
ieSPORTS Digest, Thursdays at 8 p.m. right here on IETV.
Right, welcome back. So, I'm sure following at home, very soon we'll be able to have a call-in section that you'll be able to call and view your views. But one that I know a lot of people, and I see it all the time being posted up, and I'm going to put Colin on the spot here, because there is a train of thought in Trinidad and Tobago by some people that CPL and QPR are one and the same.
Yeah, that's a question we've been asking for years. The truth is, there's no particular arrangement. When you look around in terms of league, let's talk league cricket. If you have a team that has dominated for the last 13 or 14 years, it's natural that quite a number of those players are the better players. Why are they the better players? Are the systems better? Is there the facilities that the players will come there and train so they get more opportunities to train there? Yes, a combination of those things. Whether the system is good, which I think it is excellent, whether the programs that bring kids from 7, 8, 9, and 10 come from there. So for instance, when we look back at, let's use TKR, when you have Sulin Narayan, Darren Bravo, Dwayne Bravo, Kyron Pollard coming out of Queen's Park, but they're international cricketers. It's natural that TKR will try to bring its international players into Trinidad and Tobago setup. So you're going to find quite a number of Queen's Park players in there. But we not only use Queen's Park players, we've used many players. I mean, Sharon, we could go back all the way to as far back as the first year. We could go, I could name 15 players not from Queen's Park. But it is a general thing that people say is Queen's Park for, which is played at the Queen's Park Oval. I'm a Queen's Park guy. Dwayne Bravo is from Queen's Park. Pollard is from Queen's Park. That is natural. That is natural to say that.
I think, especially in the early years, there was a lot more Queen's Park. Now it's a little more different because you had Ramlin up to last year or year before. It's not just an issue in terms of CPL, because if you look at this year, Trinidad and Tobago national team, at one time I think it had 10 Queen's Park persons playing. And therefore the question is not just, whether it's Queen's Park or why are the players there? Yeah. Because it's a personal choice.
Yeah, so this pops up quite a bit, and as I mentioned earlier, you have small clubs, and you will notice we've worked together on club developments. They have small clubs, that a lot of the clubs in Trinidad and Tobago are being run really by one benefactor. They don't have the full wherewithal. A lot don't have their own grounds. It's difficult when you're developing players. Cricket is an extremely expensive sport. And all those people who are the unsung heroes, you don't really see them on television. Those are not the ones that you see. They do because they have a great passion for the game. But it's a seasonal thing. They don't have the grounds to use when it's rainy season. They don't have indoor nets. They don't have those facilities. Queen's Park, being an international ground, has all those facilities. So a player or parent naturally would want to come. Queen's Park doesn't poach players. I'm saying it with a Queen's Park cap. But you see people coming for our academies all the time. The transition really is between the academies, through schools cricket, and then into club cricket. It's not club cricket. It doesn't start only in clubs. It starts with schools and clubs.
Schools, and I think
that,
major role.
Yeah, and that people don't understand the value of that. And it is an expensive endeavor, because you do it through the school system. You understand how difficult it is. This is not one ball that you could put 22 guys to train with. A ball alone, one ball you might use in a weekend is as expensive as one football in last year's season. It's an expensive thing, the equipment. Why would players come to Queen's Park? Because the system is there. Because there's a massive stadium. Because you have a gym. Because you have an indoor center you could practice with 4 lanes. Because there are other sports that kids are attracted to. When you come to play there, you could play table tennis. You could play lawn tennis. You could play squash. You could play football. You could use your gym. But you're in and around top players. And we see this all the time with young players come. So on a Saturday morning in a session, Pollard might come. Because his son is there, so players get to mingle with Pollard. They get to use the dressing room that Pollard's use, or Lara. It's a natural thing for players to want to come there. So it's not about poaching, it's about players coming through a system that they get greater exposure. How do you change that? Well, what you have to do is the support and the grassroots across Trinidad and Tobago is the important part. How do you get players from, like Lewis, from Rio Claro? And how do you bring them into the picture? Not just turning up to play cricket, but understanding the difference between an amateur cricketer and a professional cricketer. That bridge is the key.
Very much so, and you know, as you mentioned club development, and I totally agree with you. There are some clubs which have been able to move forward and have been able to, you know, keep players happy. Of course, they don't have the wherewithal as Queen's Park as much, but then as you mentioned, there are some clubs that barely exist and are controlled, you know, by one man, or there's no development and there's no proper structure in place, and therefore, I mean, as a young player, if you see the opportunity arise where you could go somewhere where all the peripherals are in place, and that's how you can just focus on playing, and there are things that you can benefit from, you will gravitate. And I mean, if you look at some of the names we just mentioned, while they may be Queen's Park players now, Puran and Anderson played for Clark Road.
Yeah,
Leo played outside. Sharon would have started down in Southeast, you know. So a lot of the other players would have played. Evan is from Portland. Well, Evan, I don't think Evan ever played for TPR.
No. But you remember, not all the players start there, as you say.
Yeah.
A lot of players start with, in their homes,
clubs,
in their villages, in their neighborhoods, in their school. The school's system is the important one, because you are there commingling. You have 4 or 5 different sports in any school. At that stage, kids are not picking a sport yet. Most of them, they're playing 3 or 4 different sports with limited resources. So it's a series of things. You're talking about professional sports. Professional sport is the end of it. It's before that. The feeder programs that get players to get to that stage is the important part. I think even from a CPL perspective, from a Queen's Park perspective, from a Trinidad and Tobago Cricket Board perspective, is always about reaching out. You have to go out into the length and breadth of the country here, and Tobago is important, because that is where you're going to find the talent. The talent doesn't reside in one building. If you do that, then what you're doing, you're putting all your eggs in one basket. And I think that is the real key, to look at development programs and how best we could move players through the system, both boys and girls.
I think our concern of the people, and a genuine concern, and it's something that cannot be addressed easily. As I said, it's a player's choice, is that they think that because all these players gravitate to Queen's Park, the level of our local top-tier cricket is seriously affected because Queen's Park dominates.
All right, let me give you a perfect example of something. Most of the players in our Queen's Park team that you see now are homegrown. So they actually come from Queen's Park. I can name the entire list. They're from Queen's Park. Tion Webb says they're 67, Carrie Payer 9. I mean, we can go through that entire list. Akin, we can go through. Those guys are coming in from 7 years of age. So they haven't come from another club. They have come to this club as kids. What you want to do is look at the programs themselves. What can we do better in programs? Because you don't want one team dominating anything. It doesn't do well for the leagues, and I agree with that. But it is the reality. So what you want to do is, how do you develop the other ones? And I think we talk about cricket a lot, and we talk about development of players a lot. But we have to develop the clubs. That is where it starts. The clubs have to be developed. I'll give you an example of my years working in the Answer McCall group. I worked in San Fernando for many a year, and people would come with proposals. And I could look at that proposal and know they didn't understand the business of the sport. So I'd have to rewrite that program for them to be able to submit it, because that may not be their forte.
Very much so.
So therefore, when they go to corporate Trinidad and Tobago, they don't quite grasp how to present, how to fashion the business of sport. Sport is a big business. What you see now is on the back end of it. But what you have to do is be able to create for them to be able to build it themselves. It's not about handouts, it's about developing and educating smaller clubs in how to go about doing the business. The other side of that is we have small, for instance, we could use Clark Road, we could use Central Sports. What they tend to do is try to get the business community in the area involved. But how much mileage do they get off it? How do you judge that? How do you, apart from people wanting to give back to the community, where does the media play a part in that? I always say that the media is the eyes and ears. If people don't know what's happening out there, then they don't support. That's where you want programs. I've always had to be an advocate for this. what you see on television is, I'll come on television, the big teams come on television, but the real heroes are the ones on the ground, the ones that nobody sees, and sees the hard work on the ground. And that is where I always beseech, go there, go look there. That is where the cricket caravan resides, not here. There's the end result of it. Go there, give them some of the things. So the sponsors on the ground want to be able to be part of something and be recognized for the service that they actually do to the sport.
Very much so, and I'm glad. I mean, we strayed away a little bit from CPL because I think
That's
that
okay.
we, you know, for our public out there watching in and following, it's a gray area for them. And I'm being manager. Since Trinidad, you know, Trinidad, you have managed Trinidad and Tobago cricket team in national, the Red Force. So we are not talking about CPL here. Then you went to Red Steel. So it was a chance. It's something that, Colin, with your experience, I think something that we can discuss in another program, because a lot of things that you mentioned there, a lot of stuff about sponsorship, a lot of people in Trinidad do not understand that. They think they can simply sit down, do a little small document, and that because you have a corporate body, I turn up, you should you know, come out and sponsor me. They don't understand the procedure, how to do a proper sponsorship request to begin with, a proposal, a budget, everything, how to sell it. What to offer, because there must be a return. No sponsor is going to give you $1 unless there's a return
of investment on it. And,
you know?
I think it's more about partnership. So I like to take the word sponsors and remove them and become partners, because I think it's a partnership that you have to find a way to create that relationship. So. And I use Clarkwood as an example. Look how many years Clarkwood has kept on with FCB and First Citizens. I mean, that's decades, because it's a partnership. And so as opposed to coming to do that, the problem is because the sport is seasonal, that you come back each season to look for sponsors, as opposed to have a year-long partnership. And that is the area that I feel people need to be developed.
We need to realize that cricket is no longer a seasonal thing, that off-season is just as important in what you do with the players, how you prepare them, how you provide for them, how you get them involved. And I think, and I agree with you, and you say that's one of the reasons why people will be attracted to Queen's Park, because there are activities outside of the cricket season. You know, it's still there, and it's an opportunity for them to come. And for just, you know, being a manager, even the cricket team, it needs a certain amount of expertise. And Colin is a qualified manager, qualified and experienced, having worked a number of years in managerial positions in major corporations in Trinidad and Tobago. So he has a lot of experience that he has been able to bring to the fore. We have heard some of that this evening, you know. So it's not just taking a person and putting them to manager without, just like every other position, like you need a coach who is qualified, you need an analyst who is qualified, you need a specialist batting, and that's where we have gone. You heard Collins mention the backroom staff. You look at India traveling now, they have about 18 players and about 32 backroom staff. You look at your CPL team, you have a large number.
So, and the thing about it, as I said, what you want to do for the next generation is you want to be able to prepare that. And those are areas that you have a lot of young people coming through the system. They've gone to do sports management now in UE, UTT. But when they come out, there's not a clear pathway for them to where to go and how to do that. I think those are some of the programs that's where my interests lie. To be able to bring younger people, to give them exposures to what is professional sport about? What is it actually about? You can read it and you can study it. But when you get it, it's a completely different world, and it's ever changing quickly. It changes quickly because the demands of the public and the wants and the likes and the attention span of the public is changing really quickly. And to be able to stay in touch with all of them, you have to be able to have your ears on the ground, and you have to learn, share information from abroad. So in this respect, I think there's a little disconnect in terms of some of the national teams and actually where the business of sport is going. They're still functioning where they know best. But the sport itself, and I'm not saying cricket, I'm saying all, has skyrocketed. Global sport is on a different level now. And that gap, I keep saying, you can't learn it just from a book. You have to have relationships with various places, and we have to try to develop that network.
So I say it's a nice topic for another. So let's, as we move to wrap up, what say we? Champions this year, CPL?
That's the plan.
Women's and men's?
We would like to get our goal is to win the women's, win the 60, and win the T20. That's what we come to. We try to come and take everything that we have in front of us. It's a competitive group, both on and off the field. We try to do better than the other franchises, the way we plan, the way we operate, all the things. We try to be ahead of the game all the time. I think it sends the message that we're here to stay, but we're here to compete at every level The results we don't know. What we do is we try to take care of each step along the way. The final result is a long way off. So we plan for each game, we plan for each moment, and if we could win more moments than the others, then we win and we step stone by stone. But it's a sport. So it's not an ATM machine. If you're punching something, you don't get back what you're punching. And that's why people come to see the sport, because nobody knows at the back end.
Exactly. So we know that our Trinidad public love TKR, love the cricket, and I can assure you that that's those stadiums, and we have some games in Trinidad this year. I'm sure those, as a matter of fact, I'm sure that we probably sold out already, because somebody messaged me today saying they're looking for a ticket. You will have our support here, and that will count. That's the 12th man. Strange enough, you know, in Jamaica, the crowd was very small for the T20, the last one. But we know that once they reach in Trinidad, we will have TKR in our hearts, and our people out there will be with us all the way. So we want to wish you all the best.
Thank you, Pat.
We'll
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Back home, women and men.
We'll try our best, and thanks for the support.
I mean, we didn't get much into the women, but we do have, I think, the best team in the women's tournament.
Yeah, quite a good team.
Deandra is with us.
She's the captain.
So, see you next week on IETV Sports Digest. Do enjoy your weekend.